Thank you, Mr. Chair. Father, we thank you for another beautiful day that you've given us here in this region. Lord, we ask as we make decisions for wisdom and grace and your leading, Lord. And we will give you glory and praise for it all. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. We will now open this meeting for public comment, including comments on any agenda items. On the screen, you can see 4 ways for the public to provide input to the board. All comments received will be shared with the board members and made part of the public record. This meeting is being live streamed as publicly noticed, and we will be available on METV and MPO YouTube pages respectively. Madam Clerk, do we have and did we receive any comments?
We did not receive any comments. You have a blue comment card that you have right there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you kindly. This morning, I'd like to recognize, I believe it's Pat Simmons. Yes. Good morning, ma'am. You are recognized, and I believe you'll have 3 minutes, please, to head up to the podium.
Good morning. Do you want the easy ask or the big ask first? The easy ask is now through November 5th. It's what's called a day without driving. And it's to raise awareness for people with disabilities and how they access their community. The first way you can participate is that you don't drive. You take bus, you scooter, you walk, you bike, find a way to get around your community without driving. The second way is you pay someone else to drive you about. And the thought behind that is that if that's expensive for you, think how expensive that would be for a person with a disability, perhaps. And the third way is you can drive, but be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of people parked illegally in handicap spots and access lanes. Be aware of crazy drivers, or if you come to an intersection and the hands for people that are deaf, those hands aren't working, or you don't hear the chimes for people that are blind or low vision. Just be aware of your surroundings. The big gaps came as an epiphany for me this morning. I'm a big West Wing fan, the TV show. And Sam said, education, school buildings should be palaces. Teachers should be paid 6-figure salary. So I thought, you know what this region needs is a building, a complex that serves people with disability, that has the latest research and researchers working in, that has state-of-the-art track and swimming training places,
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Appreciate the comments. Seeing no further comments, we will now move into agenda item number 4 this morning. That is the Public Transportation Task Force. First is agenda item 4A, Manatee County Area Transit Quarterly Report, and that will be presented by Katie Sheffer and Kevin Hoyt with MCAT. For the good of the board, if there are any questions and or comments for staff, I will do my best to look both left, beginning to my left, and then finishing off on my right to address any comments and or questions from the board. Good morning, Katie and Kevin, you are recognized.
Good morning, my name is Katie Sheffer. Unfortunately, Kevin was not able to be with us this morning. I did bring Mike Alberti, our fixed route superintendent, should you have any questions. Okay, so this graph here shows our ridership from fiscal year 23 to 25. Fiscal year 23-24, we did hit 2 million in ridership, and we are on pace to do that again this fiscal year, despite the damages from Hurricane Milton. Let's see. Our Veterans on Demand service was launched January 7th, 2025. This provides transportation to our community veterans to medical facilities, pharmacy, our county veterans offices, and dental appointments. This is free to our veterans, and as of this morning, we provided 1,324 trips, which surpassed our goal. We're hoping to hit 500 by the end of the year. Longboat Key on Demand. So Longboat Key on Demand is a joint service between Manatee and Sarasota counties, where Sarasota County took over in January 2024. And the average trips per month are 440, with a cost to MCAT at $29.68 a trip, and only a $2 charge to its riders. The Gulf Islands Ferry started in January 2024. Currently, we've exceeded 40,000 trips since January. We currently have 2 catamarans, and we're hoping to have a third by the beginning of 2026 that can fit up to 93 passengers. It's an enclosed catamaran this time, and we'll be able to better mitigate wind and current that currently limits the vessels we have. And then lastly, we did our annual transportation development plan updates, our transportation disadvantage service plan updates, and our Title VI program that's required to be renewed every 3 years. And that's all that we have.
Great, thank you, ma'am. I'll open the floor to any questions from this board. Looking to my left, yes.
The Veterans on Demand service, how is that advertised?
Yeah, so it's advertised on our website, at our Veteran Services office, on our buses, on the infotainment centers. We have been doing outreach. Veteran Services has been doing outreach to provide this information. We try to hit the local, the community doctor's offices to update them. Our paratransit service, we have veterans that use our handy bus service, and we've notified them too of an alternate way to get around. If they wanted to use that or both services, we have veterans that use both.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Seeing none, looking to the right. No further questions, it appears, from this board. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, we will move on to agenda item 4AI, Gulf Islands Ferry presentation with Elliot Falcione. Did I say that? Falcione. Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
The name, you're recognized.
Thank you. You can just call me Elliot. That Italian name is tough. It's good to see some friendly faces. Mr. Chair, good to see you as well. Y'all called me down here to immerse you a little bit more into the water ferry. We're now, we'll hit 2 years come the middle of January. I was a pessimist, not an optimist, when we were asked to start this, but it's working. So let's dive into it a little bit here. You all are the MPO, so you know why this initiative started. Let's get the cars off the road, utilize that beautiful asset called the Manatee River and Sarasota Bay and beyond. Here we go. Look at the first year where we were just under 27,000 passengers, lost 146 days based on, weather, chop. I think the captains were learning the waters a little bit too, and they got a lot better. You could tell that we've only lost 138 days, and look at the passenger count, up almost 44% from the year prior. We did recently put radar on the pontoon catamarans in night vision, so we believe that's helped a lot as well, and only 21 days suspended to date, so we're really good. Look at the passenger count, almost 39,000. It's 19,000 cars off the road. We really appreciate the support by City of Bradenton, Mayor Brown's leadership. When they built the landing called the Day Dock, we would have residents, visitors say, "Where's the Day Dock?" And then you got to say, well, it's to the east of the Green Bridge. So with some branding, it's now known as the Bradenton Riverwalk Pier. Once again, geographical locator. We learned in our business that never assume that society understands geography. There's some case study that'll tell you that 25% of people on planet Earth can't find the United States on a map. So let's always remember that as well. The good and the bad, the blessing is, look what we went through with all the hurricanes in 2024. Don't even like to talk about it because if the media's in the room, we don't want them to reflect on hurricanes. We want to keep moving forward. But it was 2 steps forward, 4 steps back because we did lose some landings. So with the hard work of Mayor Chappie's organization, we were able to quickly partner and get Bridge Street rebuilt to at least get a 2-stop ferry service. So that's where we're at today. It's going to take you about 40 minutes, 45 minutes to get from downtown Bradenton to historic Bridge Street. We're promoters, so it's an attraction, not a taxi. So we're trying to eliminate the word taxi. It's why it's called a ferry. As many of you know, the city pier on Anna Maria suffered losing the midsection. Thank God the T section survived it, or we would probably really be challenged with permits. So we have good communication with Mayor Short and the city of Anna Maria. We'll be bringing to the Board of County Commissioners an opportunity to consider a grant for up to $2 million of tourism tax. The state has already pledged $1.2 million thanks to our legislative delegation. And as of last week, they were still waiting on FEMA to see if they can get some FEMA dollars. But that estimated cost is going to be $8 to $10 million. It's a tough pill to swallow because that pier that we lost it was maybe 6-7 years old. So money's money. Some people say that's only tourism tax. It's still money that is the citizens. So the discussions we've had with the city of Anna Maria is when it's rebuilt, let's rebuild it in a manner that can handle Cat 4, Cat 5. So they're on that path as well. That's not going to include the ability to accommodate the water fare. There's going to be a supplemental. Let me see here. I just lost the ability to move forward here. Let me just hit enter. Technical difficulties. Please stand by. Can somebody help me? I'm one step above an idiot. Okay. While Chris is working with us, so you're going to see, do I tell jokes or do I want me to keep on going here? Coquina Beach is another area that we're working on with Manatee County government. Okay, there's the perpendicular, keyword, conceptual. Okay, so Charlie Hunsaker, who you all know, does a great job with our beach renourishment, our parks, our boat ramps. This is just a conceptual idea to run a parallel pier, gangway, to be able to service the ferry. The perfect world is when the 3rd ferry is in service, hopefully before the end of the calendar year, and it's going to have about 35 seats interior. So those cold January mornings, February mornings, when we can entice employees that live on the mainland that work on the island to provide them some heat or air conditioning. It'll go from downtown Bradenton to, at some point, the city pier on Anna Maria Island. At that point, you could reposition the pontoon catamarans to stay out on the island, and then hopefully you create a hopper service up and down the island. The 18 to 20,000 cars that are off the roads, that's mainly Manatee and Cortez Road. Because if we're running one stop on the island, we're not taking cars off of Gulf Drive. So that's where the partnerships with the three cities is paramount to the success, the growth of enhancing multimodal transportation. I'm a tourism director. I'm not a traffic engineer. It's remedial, common sense opportunity here. I got two mayors right there that are all in, and Anna Maria is all in, and we've had really good discussions recently with Holmes Beach City as well. So we need the gift to influence for the greater good, and it'll work. So stay tuned on this. Don't even want to know the price tag of that. It's going to be north of $1 million, give or take. Low-hanging fruit, South Coquina Beach. We're trying to track by zip code the type of passenger on the ferries between a visitor and a resident. We've always said we need to entice about 30% of the ridership to be residents. Coquina Beach is one of the beaches of choice for the residents. So if we can get that ferry down to South Coquina boat ramp, then that's going to entice more residents to ride the water ferry. We're finalizing some ADA enhancements to do that, and we should be heading down to Coquina sometime this fall. Big opportunity. As many of you know, we're finishing up a $53 million expansion capital improvement project with the Bradenton Area Convention Center that's going to stimulate the urban core and beyond by $30 to $40 million annually. Good ROI, right? 53 one time, 30 to 40 million year after year after year. Where we're going to continue to separate ourselves from competition is bringing the water ferry to Palmetto Estuary. We've had great discussions with Mayor Dan West and the Palmetto CRA. And what will happen is the hotel guests or the attendees for the convention center will be jitneyed down to Palmetto Estuary. Let's just say you're at a MPO statewide convention and your wife and kids say, hey, we're going to Anna Maria Island for a day trip. We're going to just jump on the water ferry and head out there. Let's keep the Greyhound buses off the road, and let's utilize that water ferry for the greater good. How is it funded? Really important that we tell that story. Obviously, revenues. The advertising should kick in a little bit because now we have the ridership to entice private sector corporations to sponsor it. We're using tourism tax proceeds also to help fund it. And then a little bit of beach concessions, the generation out of Manatee Beach and Coquina Beach. And we're doing that mainly for speed purposes, to be able to tap into those monies for repairs, upgrades to the landings out on the island is really, really important, where the TDC money is a little bit more cumbersome, where you go through the TDC for recommendation. Sometimes you have to amend an ordinance and then go for Board of County Commissioner improvement. A couple more tidbits, and I'll get out of your way, is the Ferries Perks Pass. So a lot of the hospitality industry has signed on to that. So if you buy a ticket to go on the water ferry, you can get some discounts with restaurants, attractions, etc. It's been well received. Really, really important that this MCAT app, if you're having a drink at Pier 22, or somewhere on Bridge Street and you're riding the water ferry, you can actually get on that app and see where the water ferries are at any given time. So you're not standing out there at the dock waiting and wondering. Gulf Islands social media, so that continues to grow as well. More information, just go BradentonGulfIslands.com to immerse yourself. And that's it. So I'll leave it at this. Gosh, Mr. Chair, I had informal dialogue with the city of Sarasota over a year ago, informal dialogue with the city of, or with Sarasota County I stand ready to have discussions for the greater good of a regional partnership. So I'm all in. The Tourist Development Council's all in. You just tell us what we need to do, and then let's grow this thing. It's working when your tourism director didn't believe that it could work. So with that, I'm open to any questions, or I'll go away.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot, very much. We have some questions from the board. If you'll just give us a moment. We'll start here on the left.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Mass, please.
Thank you, Chair. I know that we have chatted just briefly about this, but if you could help us understand the initial investment versus that return on that investment when it comes to, is it sustaining itself? What percentage of it is still being subsidized or until we find that sweet spot? If you could help us understand that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
It's good to see you, Commissioner. The pontoon catamarans, 49 passengers, open air. We moved 410 passengers last Saturday in the middle of September. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? That initial cost for that one pontoon catamaran is gonna be in the $500,000 to $600,000 to build. You really need to build them to fit wherever you're going to land them. The landing is gonna be all over the place. It's almost like you gotta evaluate, where you're gonna get the most capacity, the depth. Is there any seagrass mitigation? Are there any publicly owned, keyword, you have to land at a publicly owned pier dock because it's a publicly funded operation. So that's gonna narrow that down as well. Right now, I'm gonna be very wide range because I don't have it in my back pocket, but Board of County Commissioners are into that $5 to $7 million investment to get us to where we're at today. I've told our commissioners, and I'm a fiscal conservative, and you keep pushing and you keep turning rocks over to optimize. Will it be a sustainable operation? It's gonna be tough. We're never gonna say never. We're gonna work like hell to get it to be sustainable, but it's gonna be tough. The blessing is we're using a different pot of money than the ad valorem tax, the general fund dollars. So there is a cost to it. We're probably gonna put some of the capital improvements aside in that $350,000 to $400,000 shortfall. Being Elliott, to take 18 to 19,000 cars off the road, and if it costs somebody $500,000, I think that's a good price to pay. Keep in mind, we are gonna keep on hacking away at it, partnering with MCAT to optimize that operation. You can look at a case study like Pinellas County, and they have like 30 stops, a lot of density there. So it's a sustainable operation, but a lot of density, where our region is spread out. I just said it's a 40-minute commute from downtown Bradenton to Anna Maria Island. So there, you're burning fuel, not being able to move as many passengers.
Thank you, Elliot. Any further questions on the left side of this? Moving on to the right, Commissioner Koch, please.
Thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate the information in your presentation. My question has to do with the mix that you spoke of your goal of having, or what you have now is 30%, if I understood, using it as commute and the rest as a tourist attraction. What's your projection? What are you shooting towards? Are you shooting towards a different mix of that? More resident service? And for Sarasota, what would you think that would be for us? If we were to make this kind of an investment, our discussions have been not only tourist, but also resident, much more resident focused. Is that a realistic goal and aspiration?
My hesitancy as your tourism director for Manatee County is the upper middle class demographic that we target is very likely to always want to rent a car. Even if they park it on Anna Maria Island at a house and never touch it, they want access to that when they want access to that. And that's where I was pessimistic. But with that, the downtown Bradenton corridor has a slightly lower demographic, a little bit more cost-conscious visitor. So I think that's why it's working. I think I would say the regions are very similar You're a little bit more dense community. We're a little bit more spread out. But I still think you're going to have a higher visitor mix on that ferry than a resident mix. So I would, Aaron Duggan, my counterpart, I would work hard we cross-promote each other to put as many visitors on those ferries, and we can, through interceptors or surveys, to say when you're spending a vacation in downtown Sarasota, are you going to Lombo Key or Anna Maria Island as part of that vacation? And let's get into the heads of the visitors to know what's going to work and what's not going to work. The blessing of historic Bridge Street is you walk off the boat and there's amenities right there. There's a beach right beyond that. Same with North Anna Maria Island. There's Pine Avenue right there. There's a beach right beyond that. So you need the critical mass to make it work to entice people to get onto that ferry. The employees that live on the mainland, that work on the barrier islands, we've always had a mindset is we can't charge them to use it, okay? And if we don't charge them and they use it and there's confidence there that it's always going to work, and if the weather's bad or the ferry breaks down, then that's where MCAT gets the employee back home. So this third ferry is going to get us there with the free employee ridership.
Just to follow up. So you spoke to something that I think is the tricky piece of this question is that serving two masters, so to speak. You know, are you serving the visitors or are you serving the residents? And when I think about Longboat Key, I think about the folks who live on Longboat. You know, their issue is being tourists in downtown, going out to dinner, going shopping, enjoying downtown Sarasota, but they're residents of Longboat Key. Their commute to get off the island in the season, which is, you know, at least 5 months out of the year, can be really dicey. We would want to alleviate that traffic, so we would want it to serve those folks, and at the same time, the tourist piece of it to be an enjoyable way to get from the islands to downtown Sarasota and vice versa for the visitors. So is that a realistic goal? Is that something that we could achieve?
Real candid, and we thought St. Regis would actually play a part in that, you know, more visitors.
Right.
It's an exclusive key. Remember, I just told the MPO, you must land at a publicly owned dock or pier. There's not many on Longboat Key. We found one between Mar Vista and Shore. We were ready to roll, and nothing bad about this. It's what the residents want. And the town manager had called me shortly after our Board of County Commissioners had a joint meeting with the town of Longboat Key, and they had surveyed the residents in that geographic area. And he said, Elliot, we're going to hold off right now. Our residents really don't want to see the water ferry come to Longboat Key. And I said, sure, you know. So that was in the spring. I can't remember when the joint meeting was. So we would have to meet with the town manager, the town, and revisit that. That was the only public landing spot that we could find. Not sure if there's even one in Sarasota County. So I would say that may be a little bit more of the Long Road to Hoe side. But I agree, just getting employees on and off Longboat Key would be advantageous. Mm-hmm. But once again, I'm going to listen to the residents and shift gears accordingly.
Okay, Mayor.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation, Elliot. I know we've talked about it, and it's been something that I've said up here many times, that wouldn't it be cool to leave downtown Braden and have 7 or 8 stops and end up in downtown Sarasota? And I know there's a lot of challenges, but if we look at what just opened in Manatee County, 44th Avenue opened up from east to west, and, you know, there's 25,000 cars a day. They talk about that are taken off of our other east to west corridors, which is Manatee Avenue and Cortez Road, and then State Road 70. So you look at this, that took 50 years. The water taxi's been talked about in Manatee County since the 90s is what I remember back. So it took us 30 years. We keep talking about alternate ways to get transportation in our communities and get people places. And we know that if in this country, if we did not do public transportation because of the cost, we wouldn't have any public transportation, because I don't know of any public transportation that really makes money that I've ever heard of, including SCAT or Breeze now and MCAT in our area. So this is just an alternate to try to figure out to not only get employees to the islands, that at some point, is critical mass because they takes them an hour and a half or during season to get to work, where if we can figure out that transportation, this new boat is actually the quicker part of it. So if you're getting out there, and what is the biggest thing when you get to the islands? Parking, And I'm just going to say this because I had to end up driving a couple of blocks on St. Armand Circle because it didn't recognize my Gator license plate. And I couldn't park there was plenty of parking right on the circle, but after 20 minutes of trying, so there is issues where if you could take a water taxi, that was just that was kind of a little funny thing that happened to me. And I tried, it says your license doesn't exist, your license doesn't exist. So I had to go park in the parking garage.
I got to get one of those.
But,
I got to get one of those.
But anyway, but no, I just think is it sustaining right now? Hopefully someday it becomes at least break even or at some point. But when you're talking about tourism and getting them off the road and thousands of cars that have been taken off the road for this, there's an opportunity to at least look at it. Again, I'm a very conservative person as well, as most of us on this board are. We don't want to spend money to waste it. But at what cost, do we say, okay, a little bit of tourism dollars is worth spending if we're getting tens of thousands of cars off the road? And it's pretty cool that we can go on the water that people wouldn't even see and explore from that region that we're in, and I mean, it's an opportunity that I think to really keep looking at. And we didn't know if it would work. We had an opportunity and it's worked. Now, how do we make it a little more sustainable?
Yeah, Mayor, and I've already overshot the runway on my time, so thank you, Dave. I've had elected official here and there, I've had residents here and there say, you're not charging enough. And maybe my ignorant response is, capacity is more important than revenues. Are revenues important? Absolutely. But look, the capacity's there, 410 people in the middle of September. I assume those are mostly residents. That's the kind of mindset. Where we need y'all's help is, are there federal grants? Are there different type of grants? We have grant writers turning rocks all over the planet, looking, especially some of this capital improvement. So that's where we need your help. We need your ambassadorship. I'm just Elliot, the community servant. We've earned each other's respect. I hope we've earned each other's trust. Game on. Call my cell. I'm all in. And let's keep hacking away at this for the greater good. When a Board of County Commissioner has something on their heart related to me, they call me on my cell phone and we work through it for the greater good. So thank you so much.
Hold on, Elliot. You're
Yes,
not
sir.
off the hook yet, buddy.
Okay.
We've got Dave. Dave had a quick question.
Quick
or
question, and thank you for coming. You should know that the board, MPO board, talks about this ferry service at almost every meeting. It comes up in a positive way, and we see great hope for it. The question is, of those 30 stops in Pinellas County, are those all at publicly owned stops? Or
It's a good question. I'd be guessing if I told you yes. I don't know how it's funded, how it's budgeted. I know the contract, our operator is operating that service. Keep in mind, when we went out for procurement, we couldn't find a friend. Nobody bid on it. Now, there's an opportunity for that sometimes. Then you can go find a friend and cut a deal. And it happened to be Tricia and Dennis Rodriguez, and then we start really getting into that. So they actually pay the city of Clearwater some funding from that operation. So it's a good question. I'm going to give you the answer, maybe your next meeting through a report. I don't think you want my mug to come back here. Tampa, a lot of stops in Tampa as well. That's a sole proprietorship. That's the one challenge that we found is there's not many corporations that run water ferry services in Florida. A lot of them are sole proprietorship. So you got to keep on it because God forbid something happens to that sole proprietor, you don't have an operation. So that's always for internal, telling you more than you need to know, but that's always we always talk about that internally as well. How do we mitigate that if that day ever comes? Okay, but I'll get you that answer, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
No further questions at this time.
Great seeing y'all. Thank you.
Very good. We'll next move on to agenda item 4B, Sarasota County Breeze Transit Quarterly Report, please, with Megan from Sarasota County Breeze Transit. Good morning, Megan. You are recognized.
All So thank you. My name is Megan Louie. I am the Planning and Performance Manager with Breeze Transit, here to give you a quarterly update. So first off, sharing some of our ridership data. This is ridership for all of our services, including fixed route, Breeze Plus, and Breeze On Demand over the last 3 fiscal years, with the current fiscal year shown in the dark blue. You'll see, similar to what MCAT shared, we did see a reduction in ridership during our storm season last year. In July, that was the first month of the current fiscal year when we did see our ridership number creep up above the prior fiscal year ridership numbers. This next slide is the same data shown just slightly differently by service type. So over the same 3 fiscal years, the fixed route ridership in light blue, the 77 Siesta Islander in dark blue, Breeze On Demand in green, and the coral showing the Breeze Plus. This graph, you can really see around October of last year, that impact to the Siesta Islander in the dark blue color, how narrow that got. And you can see how our ridership is growing as the year has continued on. Since the last board meeting in May, I wanted to share some of the outreach activities we've been hosting. On the left there, you'll see our summer intern, Ryan. He is hosting an activity with some local teens in the community that stopped by our admin building. He led them in an exercise to design a transit system, taking into consideration some competing priorities. So identifying frequency as a priority, or connectivity between schools and homes, and how they needed to adjust their transit network that they were designing to meet those different priorities. In the middle of the slide is one of our new outreach tools. It's a cutout of a Breeze bus that we've brought to the New College Novapalooza event, welcoming students back to the college. We were able to participate in several events at New College and UCF as students return, to share with them the services we offer, provide them with information, and kind of connect with the community and see how we might fit into their daily schedules. And then on the right, we had some students from Girls Inc. visit us to learn about our services, tour our facilities, and participate in that transit design exercise. We also have done a few marketing initiatives. The first one was implementation of going fare-free on the Route 99. Now that the Route 99 is fully grant-funded, we've removed the fares while that grant funding is in place. And with that change to the Breeze buses, we have seen an increase in ridership on Route 99 on our Breeze buses. We also implemented some changes to our on-demand fares in July as well. Prior to this change, our fares was a flat rate of $2 per trip, and the fares have since changed to $3 for up to the first 3 miles, and then $1 increments up to a maximum of $6. We have kept our transportation disadvantage fare at $1.50 for the on-demand service. Looking at initial data, since that implementation, we have seen a slight reduction in ridership on the on-demand service, but also an increase in revenues that we've been collecting from that service. And then lastly, at our last MPO board meeting in May, there was a request to come back with some information about our bus stops and our bus stop amenities. And so we have a couple slides to go over and share some of that information with you guys. Within our overall system, we have just over 1,200 bus stops throughout the county, and they fall into generally 3 categories illustrated here on the screen. On the left side is the bus stop sign, so the stop is identified by a sign. It's either on a sidewalk, the side of the road, there might be a boarding and a lighting area for deployment of our ramp. The middle one illustrating our stops that have benches, and then on the right, our stops with shelters. And we generally receive requests for bus stop amenities through several different channels, either 311 or our breeze@scgov.net email address. Those usually come in from our general public or our riders. And then we also have our operators, our supervisors, and our team who service our bus stops that are kind of our eyes and ears out on the road that will come to us with requests for improvements or servicing at our different stops. So we install amenities at stops for several different reasons. First off, whether it be repair or replacement. Sometimes our stops get damaged by accidents or just normal wear and tear. They've reached the end of their useful life and they need to be replaced. We also, to ensure that we equitably distribute the amenities across our entire system, we set up standards for where amenities will be installed. So stops with 20 or more boardings per day are eligible for a shelter, and stops with 10 or more boardings per day are eligible for a bench. We also look at different criteria, such as high use of transit by elderly or disabled, or the adjacent land uses to try and more fully encapsulate whether or not we should install these amenities. We also, when we're working on road projects, whether that be coordinating with FDOT or the local jurisdictions, look for opportunities to make improvements to our bus stops. If they're already working on a project and ripping things up, to add in that bus stop might not be much of an additional cost or time. And then when we're reviewing development applications, if the stop is, or if the development is along a fixed route transit route, already has a bus stop there, or is a development that is supportive of transit, we may request the installation of a bus stop with improved amenities at that location. So with all that said, there are some limitations that make it a little bit more difficult for us to install some amenities at stops, whether there's available right-of-way for us to make that installation. FDOT has clear zones that ensure that the stop is located in a safe place out of the zone if a vehicle were to leave the roadway, that nobody would get injured. And sometimes when the right-of-way is not available, we need to work with the private property owner to obtain an easement to place the bench or amenity at that location. And then all these things take a lot of time, so that kind of can feel like it slows things down because we need to design the pad for the bench or the shelter to be installed on, get permitting from the jurisdiction of that roadway, and then work with our coordinator to get that stop installed or that amenity installed. A few years back, actually, with some of our interns, we worked on developing a kind of tool to help us prioritize and more efficiently focus our efforts on improving our bus stops. So we have this tool that looks at average daily boardings. The core routes are kind of our high frequency routes. The area around the routes that there's a higher concentration of transportation disadvantaged riders or transportation disadvantaged services that are utilized, proximity to key urban places, the posted speed limit on the roadway, proximity to sidewalks and ADA ramps, and we take every stop, put it into this tool, put in weighted averages, and it spits out and says, these are the stops with the highest priority that you should focus on. So every year, we take our updated information, run it through the tool, and reprioritize our efforts to ensure that we're focusing our efforts for transit improvements in locations that make sense and that are the most efficient use of our time and resources. And that is the quarterly update.
Great, thank you, Megan. Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Koch, please.
Thank you very much for that report. I appreciate it. I have two questions for you. One is, what is the percentage increase in Route 99 since the fare has been eliminated?
I do have initial data for July, and it's an increase of between like 45 to 50%. It's about 10,000 more riders or passengers on that trip in the month of July.
Wow, thank you. That's impressive. And did you expect that? Were you expecting that big an increase?
I don't think we were really sure exactly what to expect.
Wow, okay. And then what percentage of the bus stops have shelters? And I know you just talked about the formula where you put everything in and it spits it back out. So my thought is reversing the logic maybe a little bit, that some of the stops are not, that are less used, would be more used if there was shade. I know that seating is also a consideration, but I think shade is one of the most important ones, especially if you're waiting, having to wait, 10, 12, 15 minutes in the hot sun. That can be, something that turns people off from, accessing the
Yeah.
buses. So I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
So looking at our data right now, we have it's about a 50-50 split between the stops that are just the post and the stops with benches and shelters.
And shade, is shade considered a priority over the bench, or are benches considered the priority?
We don't currently evaluate shade, but we know that shade can come from several things, whether it be the shelters or the adjacent street trees that might be available. So definitely always looking for opportunities to improve shade, because we know in the Florida sun, it is something that's very important.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no, Commissioner Mass, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is real quick. I know years ago in Sarasota County, we implemented the sidewalk program, and I'd like to just make a suggestion. Anytime there is a new road project or a widening of a road, or the opportunity for the potential for that to have new growth, I would like to at least have the conversation that says, either with our transportation department and/or planning and development services, when they implement requirements, that we at least have the opportunity to have the right-of-way and/or the paths that are put in place, even if they're never used. Because I will tell you, as we all know, to ride retrofit is very challenging. But if it's there, planning for the future, it generally bodes very well from a fiscal responsibility. So thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Megan. Very good. Next, we will move on to agenda item 4BI, Breeze Transit Development Plan. We have Jane Grogg with us here this morning. Good morning, Jane. You're recognized.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Today, I will cover why we have a TDP and review the TDP timeline, discuss the MPO coordination program for this, and share a sliver of the public information and data analysis that helped shape this plan. Also touch on the projects included, and I'd like to recognize both Megan Louie and Tamara Shells from our team that worked with a consultant to develop this 270-plus page analysis that has quite a bit of detail in it. So why do we have a TDP? It serves as our 10-year strategic plan, and it looks at the planning horizon, identifying public transit needs and the community strategies that can be used to meet those needs. It is a requirement of FDOT, and it focuses on things such as local coordination, analyzing that connection between land use and transit, and setting priority projects as they relate to transit. The contents of the plan are specified in the Florida Administrative Code, and over the last year, staff has been looking at all the pieces required to ensure that they've been included. And through the process, this includes our analysis of the data and information, testing and modeling the scenarios for those potential projects, and how they might impact our ridership. And then, as you can see here, we finalized the plan earlier this year. Our Board of County Commissioners adopted this on October 26th, and we submitted this to FDOT for their review. Part of the new requirements of the Florida Administrative Code is to make a presentation to the MPO for better coordination, leading to that tie-in to the long-range transportation plan. Okay. So the MPO coordination includes aligning with the goals, the objectives, and the policies established for our area. It also increased the collaboration to maximize resources. As we look forward towards setting priority of projects, we want the TDP to feed that information as it relates to transit and engaging stakeholders in a transparent way. So to build the community input for this plan, we talked to stakeholders, community partners, riders, general public, both through our online survey and held rider events. And those rider events were held at our downtown transfer station and our Venice train depot as well. We stationed an extra bus with air-conditioned space and did our presentation boards in those cooler locations and included bilingual facilitators to get nice, solid participation. This practice was recognized as a best practice by FTA reviewers in our last triennial audit. Through the survey efforts, I don't think it'll be a large surprise, but it was good to confirm that the top priority for Breeze should be to serve people who do not have access to reliable transportation, followed by the other responses that you see here. When asked what should we do to address those concerns, the top two issues were frequency and adding additional hours of service. Something else that's not likely a surprise to those who live and move throughout our community, when asked related to the top corridors for transportation, the community clearly identified US 41 as a main thoroughfare that's very important for transit in our community. Okay. So as I mentioned, the TDP that was established is a rather lengthy document, and it has a lot of dense data and analysis. It provides lots of insights for staff to look at future projects and look for further exploration. I'll just point out some of the key things. Here we captured the ridership and looked at that, as well as the top performing routes, 17, 77, and 6, with 99 coming up close behind on that. And those stops, or those routes, excuse me, really serve approximately 50% of our annual ridership. So they're very important to the community. There were two routes that just barely missed the performance threshold. Those are routes 3 and 9, and those we'll be looking at for more efficiency and analysis in this coming year. Our team has a project that we're working on to analyze that a bit deeper. But in comparison to the 2019 analysis of low-performing routes, there were 9 at that time that were not performing up to expected levels. And as you recall, that's where the low-performing routes were targeted in that 2020 analysis that we did that led to their elimination and reinvestment of those funds into the on-demand service that started in 2021. In relation to that service of the on-demand, the areas in our community served by public transit nearly doubled from 214 square miles to 596 square miles, increasing access to transit throughout our community. And you can see here the comparison of those fixed routes ridership that were existence in 2019 that had those low-performing service that are now served by the on-demand service, and we see a much higher ridership in those areas. All of the data and analysis, public input, helped us to identify the potential projects that align with those public transit needs in our community. There are 15 identified projects that are likely to, or could likely be implemented in the next 10-year planning horizon. and then those were ranked based on multiple criteria. Of course, each project that's contained in the plan, as it proceeds forward, will receive individual approval. So just by the nature of having it in the document does not indicate an automatic go forward, but it does also enable us to open the pathway for funding, right? So we need it to be established in the document so that when we're identifying things like such as priority of projects and other grants, FDOT will look to our TDP to see if it's something that is listed and supported in this important strategic plan. Some of the goals, regional goals that were looked at to prioritize these projects are included here, as well as the projected cost or estimation of those projects. I mentioned earlier some modeling of ridership. That is focused specifically on fixed route modeling. Our team is looking at other software and tools to help us project on-demand ridership forecasting as we consider modifications and changes to the on-demand service. So in the short-term projects, there are 9 that could be implemented in approximately the next 1 to 5 years. Some of these projects in the list are already partly underway, such as our mobile fare payment project and our Siesta Key improvements. And then our long-term projects, there are 6 of those that are projected could be implemented in the next 6 to 10 year planning horizon for those. Again, having these projects on this list is not a green light automatic inclusion, but yet will be considered going forward. As I mentioned, we've received Board of County Commissioners approval for this, submitted to FDOT. We're working with them on some minor adjustments to some of the wording, linking our financial information with the specific projects that already exist in the plan, just a connection of that information. Today's presentation here, and then we'll look forward to both the FDOT sign-off and the incorporation into the long-range transportation plan. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jane. I will look over here to my left. Any commissioners' questions here on the left? Any on the right? Seeing none. Thank you, Jane, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next, we have agenda item number 5 under the reports section. I don't have a whole heck of a lot to report other than during the time between our last meeting and this meeting. I hope you guys have had a chance to review Ryan's contract. We'll be going over that. But at this time, it is appropriate to introduce once again our new Florida Department of Transportation District 1 Secretary, Jamie Driggers, and to hear from him this morning. Mr. Driggers, you are recognized, sir.
I don't have anything additionally to share this time. Just look forward to continued partnership. If you have any questions for me, I'm absolutely available to answer.
Are you a Florida Gator fan?
Yes, I'm all Florida teams fan.
That was Karen rushing.
That was, yeah. Very,
That's how you keep your job.
very diplomatic.
Sometimes the T-shirts are a little cheaper in stores than others. I'll just say.
Understood.
I heard
Well,
yes at first. I heard the yes.
Okay. Well, if you'll permit me a second, perhaps some of my colleagues on the board maybe want to introduce themselves or say hello or have a question. So I'll start on my left and we'll work our way down. Okay, how's that?
Absolutely.
Very good, sir. Anybody down here on the left? Mayor, go ahead.
Want to introduce ourselves?
Sure, go ahead.
Mayor Liz Alpert, City of Sarasota.
Commissioner Jason Beard, Manatee County.
Yeah, we met earlier, Steve Branham from Longboat Key. Thank you.
Teresa Mass, Sarasota County, looking forward to working together.
Vice Mayor, City of Northport. Nice to meet you.
Professor George Cruz, I'm the chair of the Manatee County Board.
Mayor Gene Brown, we met the other day, had a great conversation, and yes, I support the University of Florida.
Mayor John Chappie, Bradenton Beach.
Hi, Jane Coker from City of Bradenton, council member and diehard Seminole.
Mark Smith, Sarasota County and Georgia Tech, actually.
Jen Ahern Koch, a Sarasota City Commissioner, and no football loyalty to anyone.
All right, very good. Well, again, Jamie, thank you kindly for coming out this morning. We really appreciate it, and we are looking to continue a very cooperative, transparent, and working relationship with FDOT and your team. So we've got a lot to do here, and I refer to Sarasota and Manatee as Minnesota. You'll see that from time to time. We have a great relationship with our colleagues up north, so it's kind of one team mentality here. Okay. Okay, very good. I have no further questions. Dave, did you want to say anything about that? Okay,
There's some other FDOT reports later in the meeting,
Okay.
so there will be additional opportunity to discuss specific projects.
Okay, very good. Well then, with that being said, I will move on to our Mayor of Bradenton, Mayor Gene Brown, for the MPOAC report, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And probably, we had a meeting a few months back, coming up, and our next meeting's in October, so we'll be met over in Orlando. But one of the things that we focused on, and really is trying to work with the local legislators and the areas in the state of Florida, because when you look at a lot of them, and we saw here with, and I was sad that our Representative McFarland couldn't come today. She was supposed to be here and had to have a change, just to try to get more information on what we do at the MPOAC and what all of the MPOs do around the state. So really working with the legislators, and as we saw, Secretary Perdue came to our meeting in Tallahassee and really did a great job at kind of explaining what he knows and is supportive of, obviously, where we are now compared to where we were a year ago. And so I think that was important to really get that in there. And then really figuring out the funding for priority projects. You know, we've got some priority projects that this MPO has put as its number one for quite a while, and some things have changed, but we'll be going through that and working through it collaboratively, not only with the MPO, Sarasota Manatee MPO, but also the state priorities around things. So, and then just really bringing up project delivery of how we can make things happen, where we look at and say, okay, why are these boards important? You know, I mean, we know where our state is. We know how some of us are trying to work through some of the idiosyncrasies of making government more efficient, and how can that happen? But efficiency also becomes in getting projects done, because we know if we put a priority on a project and it doesn't happen, it's only going to be more expensive, because some of the projects, as we know, are going to have to be done at some point. You know, replacing bridges, you know, when they're 50+ years old and have lived their life, you know, if we say, let's put it down 5 more years, it's only going to be that much more expensive in 5 years. So it's important to really work well with the MPOAC, working down with all of the MPOs, working with DOT, because DOT, and I'll say this, from years ago, it was a matter of DOT would pick a project, whether the community liked it or not. And DOT, we're not your grandfather's DOT anymore, where the DOT really starts to work with the local areas, and that's important. I'm looking forward, we had a great person in LK that retired, went into the private world. Looking forward to working with Secretary Driggers on really trying to figure out how we can push some of our local, but also working statewide, which obviously, you know, those are great. And Dave was there, obviously, and, you know, kind of getting towards the end of his career. Brian Brown was there, and really I'm impressed with the network that Dave has being on that board. And I also think it's important for us here to see how Ryan plays into that as we go for the future, because it's knowledge, it's collaboration, it's how you make things work. And I, you know, sitting on that board, and I know you sat on it for a year, and I've heard others talk about it, but it is learning things around the rest of the state, how we can make our local area better, and working with the state officials. So we appreciate that, and I don't know if you're planning on being there in October in Orlando, but it'll be good to see you, Secretary Driggers, there, and really see the collaboration. So that's about all I got, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Mr. Vice Chair. Now we will move on to our Executive Director, Mr. Hutchinson. He will give his MPO report, which includes the draft 2026 Sarasota Manatee MPO meeting schedule. Good morning, Dave, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Dr. Nunder. At your places is a printed handout from the Association of MPOs, the national organization that was developed in conjunction with and in cooperation with a local officials in transportation, or LOT, coalition that has been working together on a local and regional positions related to reauthorization. And so these concepts that are put forth in here related to the reauthorization were developed in cooperation with the National Association of Counties, the National Association of Development Organizations, the National Association of Regional Councils, the National League of Cities, and the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So not in a vacuum, not just based on supporting MPOs in the reauthorization, but how the partnerships work. And certainly the Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO, that represents the states, is also at the table with reauthorization. They have slightly different, priorities than these. These are what could be agreed upon nationally. Our position in Florida is that shifting future funding to more formula-based funding will benefit our areas better than some of the shift that occurred where new money was added for transportation, but it was mostly added in discretionary programs that had to be applied for, and some areas did real well in that. Florida did not. I think we got about 2% of the money. So both the state and you all have talked about this before, and I think when we get to policy positions, it's reflected in that we support funding for more formula funding in the reauthorization. That would be the significant change. But I think this is a good roadmap. AMPO has links on their website, as do the other organizations that relate to what you might have your lobbyists, because we can't lobby. MPOs don't lobby, but you can. And some of these policy directions will make a big impact in the future funding that might help fund things like the water ferry service and some of the other projects that we have. I guess if there's one takeaway, it's that now is an opportunity to try to, and I think we've tried to do this with the long-range plan that you'll also hear about later and adopt next month, tried to lay the groundwork for having, I will use the term shovel ready, but it may or may not mean, it does mean having projects ready, already in the pipeline or ready to plug into the pipeline as close to being construction ready as possible, so that they are going to get delivered. We've put a big focus on project delivery, and that remains an important focus. So that, I would just mention that, and I did let Representative McFarland's office know that she and other members of the delegation have a standing invite to come and talk to and hear from the MPO board, and I think they're all aware of that. Over the next couple of months, both Chair Nunder and Vice Chair Brown will be presenting on behalf of the MPO at the local legislative delegation meetings, at one in Sarasota County and one in Manatee County. The two other items, let's see, I recognize that our staff have made presentations at several national conferences, statewide conference for the American Planning Association on our trails efforts, and just how to be successful in working with collaborative partnerships on getting funding for trails, and also on project delivery and use of data in at the National MPO Association annual meeting that just took place in Rhode Island. Two other quick items, three maybe. The MPO office space has been secured. It's under contract. We're working with the landlord to so that they finish up everything they have to do, and then the county lets us move in. Manatee County, we appreciate the support of the commission in executing that contract, and so we anticipate that being accomplished before the end of the year, probably mainly in November. And I don't know that we'll have this much room in there to where we could hold these meetings. But certainly our committee meetings will have enough space, and we will, once we're there, we will see if there's any way we could hold board meetings there, because I think that would be helpful. But until then, we have this place as a backup. Let's see, if I've asked for our next meeting that we kind of spend some time with an overview of the FDOT work program cycle and process, because this is something that we hear every year. We will receive sometime between now and December the draft tentative work program. They're already talking about potential changes where the replacement in kind of the DeSoto Bridge might be deferred until the early 2030s, so 3 or 4 years. There has been talk about the timing of the Anna Maria Bridge replacement project, and I have been assured that that will not take place at the same time as the Cortez Bridge replacement construction. So we'll have some more information as the work program development cycle occurs, and FDOT will have a chance to talk more about some of the specific projects. In fact, they'll be here today to talk about some of that timing. And last but not least, the federal shutdown, if it does occur, just FYI, MPO's funding, like much transportation funding, is secured through the end of the federal fiscal year that ends in February 2026. So, we'll continue to support your transportation efforts, even if the federal government focuses strictly on essential services for a period of time. And I don't know if Secretary Driggers has anything more to say about it. It's something that, certainly concerns transportation officials at all levels.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, we're all kind of in that monitoring stage to see the final impact.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Is that it, Dave?
That is.
All right, very good. Do we have any questions for our executive director at the moment? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you, Dave. We will now move on to agenda item number 6, which is the consent agenda. Mr. Hutchinson, will you read the title of each item for the record, please?
Yes, I will. And on one item, I'm not sure if any of these people are here that are being appointed or reappointed to our Citizens Advisory Committee. Ms. Stephanie McKinnon, representing Sarasota County, Carl Sieg, also representing Sarasota County, Ray Dowling for Manatee County, and reappointing Bob Goss, representing the city of Palmetto. If they're here, they may wish to stand and be recognized, but I'll read the consent agenda. The entire consent agenda will be read aloud for the record and passed in one motion. Any MPO board member may remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion. First item is the Sarasota Manatee MPO Board regular meeting minutes of May 19th, 2025, inclusive of any scrivener's errors or corrections to specific details. Sarasota Manatee MPO Committee appointments and reappointment. The Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP amendment, which updates to add some funds that were carried forward from the previous cycle, and also approval of both the Manatee County Area Transit Development Plan that is detailed in the agenda packet, and the Sarasota County Breeze Transit Development Plan that you heard about from Director Grog earlier.
Great, thank you, Dave. Does any member of this board wish to pull any items on the consent?
Mr. Chair, I had a question for 6E.
Do we need to pull that, Madam Clerk, then to ask the question, or can we just discuss it before we go through the motion?
You can discuss it.
Let's open it up for discussion. Commissioner Koch, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. I only had one question, and it's pertaining to page,
This is the Manatee County Area Transit Development Plan update?
yes, this is on page 3-6. And on the performance measure tracking, Number 3, it says total at-fault accidents per year. In 2022, it was 26, and in 2024, it says 37, but it indicates that it decreased. Am I misunderstanding that table?
Well, Commissioner, perhaps that is something that staff can go ahead and look into and comment on. We have. Oh, they left?
Yeah, I'll briefly add, they're currently not here, but we can certainly disseminate that information to Manatee County and let them know that, yeah, that appears to be an error.
Okay. And your name, sir?
Ryan Brown,
For the record?
Deputy Director of the MPO.
Thank you kindly. All right. Does that satisfy your query, ma'am?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. In that case, I have no further individuals requesting something taken off the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve all these items on the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Mayor Bradenton, Vice Chair Mayor Brown, and a second by Commissioner, no, we'll give it to Commissioner Cruz. I heard you first. You're closer today, so we'll do that. Any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next action item is starting with agenda item 7A, fiscal year 2025, 2026 through 2029 and 30 Transportation Improvement Program, otherwise known as the TIP, the roll forward. Pamela Parr from FDOT will present, please.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. So I'm presenting the TIP roll forward, which is something that is done on an annual basis. The roll forward amendments include those projects which were in the previous state fiscal year that were not authorized before the June 30th fiscal year and now must be incorporated in the new MPO TIPs in the new current state fiscal year. This reconciles the differences and allows for authorization of funds. So we do this every year, and we would like to have the approval of the board to have that done.
All right, before we continue, any questions for Pam? All right, seeing none, this item will require a vote by a show of hands, please. Do I have a motion for the approval of FDOT requested TIP roll forwards projects?
Move approval of FDOT's request TIP roll forward projects.
We have a motion by Commissioner Koch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kocher. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raise your hands. Show hands. Madam Clerk, sorry. Have it. Have it. All right, here, let me raise my hands. All right. Is there anybody against? Madam Clerk, seeing none. Okay, passes unanimous. Thank you kindly. Okay, next agenda item is 7B 444-634-2, which is State Road 72 from east of Proctor Road to east of Lorraine Road. Pam Barr, again, you will be presenting on this particular item, and this is important. This is in my district, so let's make sure we get this one high and high, please. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
This is a project that has been on the books originally. It was one project altogether, and what we've done is we've segmented the project into two different, well, actually, there's 3 segments. But this is for the section 2 and for segment 3. And then on segment 3, we needed to program some funds. So we went to the MPO and requested that we were able to use some SU funds in the amount of $3,590,000 for the design of project 444-634-3. And this, you will see that there was some history behind this, and I believe Ryan is going to go over that part of it.
Thank you, Pam. As Pam mentioned, historically, we've also previously added $2.3 million to make sure this project stays on track. We needed to identify a financial path forward. As discussed with Jamie and Wayne and Pam, having a path forward is essential to making it through the design checklist and then allow us to continue to program future right-of-way or construction funds. This funding was made available due to other changes in the work program, so the MPO had the available funds in our current operational boxes, so we've made use of those to ensure that we're drawing down from that contingency, and to making sure that we're effectively using and spending our funds in the appropriate fiscal year. We're happy to take any questions regarding this project, but it is one that is essential to creating, a more efficient regional roadway network, and one that we like to see funded through this process.
Very good, Ryan. We seem to have a question for the left. Commissioner Mass, please.
Thank you. As we share this, Chair,
Yes, I'm happy to share.
we share this. Will this get us through PD&E?
Correct. It'll fully fund design as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Any further questions on the left? Moving on to the right. Commissioner Smith, please.
Yeah, is there a timeline on construction?
I would say, without throwing Jamie too much into the fire today, I would say we've had several conversations about reauthorization. I would say it's kind of a wait and see moment, right? In the next year or so, we're going to have to deal with changing priorities, how we function and operate between state and federal government. I would say it's probably out in the outer years of the work program would be my guess. But for now, making sure and ensuring that we have the design funding in place and being taken care of, that we'll be able to be poised when funding does become available to address that project.
Actually, Ryan just took the last statement was what I was wanting to address on this one. The efforts that are made now to address design we're going to be utilizing that to help keep us on a project track. So that was an important component to make sure that we had design covering this area. We should be ready to move forward with right-of-way, but we are still working on construction funding.
And just for the record, please state your name, sir.
My apologies, Wayne Gaither, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Dave.
And I might add that, this is not something that our priority list of projects identified as something that would receive this particular type of federal funding. However, it's federal funding that hasn't been spent on other projects for various reasons. We've had complications on several projects, that are in our work program, but haven't moved forward, and that funding needs to be spent within a period of time. So MPO staff recommends approval because it's a good way to leverage those federal funds, and the state is going to come back and do a much bigger project, and it keeps that project on track. We've done this on many other projects over the years, and it's part of that partnership relationship where we hope that the other projects that might actually be having money not spent on them right now will still be able to move forward.
Very good, Dave. Any further questions on this for staff? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion for approval of the FDOT requested adjustments, please?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Mast. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? The chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7C, which is the MPO Executive Director Employment Agreement. Dave Hutchinson and Ryan Brown on this one. You gentlemen will be presenting. The floor is yours, sir.
And I would note that Rob Eschenfelder, one of the legal counselors that the MPO utilizes, has worked on 4 of these employment agreements over the years, from the beginning with Mike Guy many years ago. Some of you might remember that name. Michael Howe, my agreement, and now this latest one, which was developed following consultation with Chair Nunder. And
Okay.
if he's here, in case you have any questions.
Sure. Well, we always like to get our attorneys on the record in Sarasota County, but today we'll behave. I won't say any jokes. But thank you kindly for your time, sir, and Dave and Ryan through the process. For me, first time I had ever done something like this, it was very well thought out. I think expectations were set, and there's some things in there that I think hopefully everybody had a chance to look at it. If there are any comments, questions, or concerns at this time, now is the time before we shackle Ryan to the MPO for hopefully some time. I'll look to my left on this board. Are there any questions, comments, and/or concerns? Look to my right. Okay. Well, Dave?
I have, I again express my confidence in Ryan being able to do a great job for the MPO board. We have a tradition of promoting from within that's been worked well for this MPO, and we're in the process of advertising for a planner and a planning manager, with the presumption that you'll approve this today, and I think that you'll be well served. That's as your director over these last 14 plus years, always having a path forward in the event that anything should happen to me has always been a back of mind and even front of mind concern. And I appreciate the the trust and the partnership that we've had with your jurisdictions and each of you over these years. It's I'm not gone yet. I'm here for another almost 5 months, and I'll be working hard right till the end of that. And it's been good though. I think Commissioner Mass said that you see many, many successes over the years, and I think that this process really does work in helping identify good projects for the local jurisdictions in the state to do, and we don't always get all of them done, but it's been a good experience. Thank you.
Very good, very well said, Dave. And succession planning in any organization is important, right? Giving it off to the next generation. So, Ryan, you're young. We hope that you're going to be around for a very, very long time, sir. Okay. Yes, Mayor Brown, please.
I want to make a motion, but I'd like, Dave, first, if you can actually give us that timeline so the public can hear it and see it. It's in
Yes.
writing, but you
Yes.
can give us your timeline of what's happening.
This agreement will go into effect February 7th, and that would be my last day. And then Ryan would be the executive director effective then, and I will be around until then. And he's already assumed a lot of responsibility, and we have a lot of good projects and coordination and collaboration going on, and I have tried to convey as much of my experience and knowledge, and he's been very receptive. And I think we have a good team, a good staff member with Nina and Nick and Barshini just left she's actually started a job in Orlando, which might be good because she needs an H-1B, and they now cost $100,000 apparently. So we're sorry to see her go, but happy that she was able to make a good transition. That timeline, though, is subject to board approval.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the MPO Executive Director Employment Agreement with Ryan Brown at this time.
We have a motion by Mayor Brown, and is there a second, please?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Mast.
Oh, and then board approval will also authorize execution of the employment agreement, to me, changing the date through February 6th or through February 7th, whatever the attorney put together.
All right, do we need an amended motion to that effect? Oh, well, I'm looking to the attorney here.
Yeah, so I also did a contract amendment, the fifth and final amendment for Mr. Hutcherson to back his last day right up to the new executive director. So your motion would be to approve Ryan's agreement and approve the Fifth Amendment for.
And that's the only change
Yeah,
to that.
and Dave's going to work for free during that period of time, I think, right? That's what I understood. Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
accept
and he's
that.
buying us all lunch at the Ritz-Carlton, I think that's right.
I will share with all you real quick, because you invested in your chair, the ability to negotiate. He really did negotiate. It was not a, what do you want? Okay, there was some good, hard discussions that went on. I was very impressed by your chairs.
And I'll make that as part of my motion.
All right, so
Second.
are we good, Madam Clerk? Everything good there? All right, very good. Is there any further discussion on this? I don't think so. Let's go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on, excuse me, is agenda item 7D. It's the 2026 Sarasota Manatee MPO policy priorities. This is Ryan Brown's baby here with the MPO, and will present this. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you. As you might have already heard, and Dave might have stole a little wind out of my sails of some of the things that we wanted to change here related to our policy priorities this year, but Really want to focus on our transportation projects and transportation funding. We've had great success in the past, relaying it to two specific categories within this. One really focusing on the projects we'd like to see accomplished in the next year, and the other being the funding changes, which will be certainly more important here in the upcoming year with reauthorization on the horizon. One main consideration provided from our TAC committee was to address just that formula funding over discretionary funding. It's a discussion that we've all had at length. It's been done at the state level, federal level, across many national agencies. It's one that we think would allow the state to get its fair share of federal funding over that of discretionary programs, which are favored, I would say, by more historic and localized areas where they're seeing population decline, rather than areas where we've seen population increase, like our state here in Florida. So that is the main change this year that we're proposing to these policy priorities under funding, to maintain transportation dollars in transportation projects and to evaluate the potential during reauthorization to emphasize the importance of formula funding.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Before we look for a motion, any comments or questions for Ryan? Commissioner Koch, please.
I just wanted to ask a question of this board, is that I noticed that it says that they're presented at the Manatee and Sarasota counties legislative delegation meetings, and they'll also be part of partner organizations, counties, municipalities, League of Cities, and so on and so forth. I'm a representative on the Minnesota League of Cities, and was curious if I should bring this to the Minnesota League. Their meeting is tomorrow, and so I could share this at that meeting if that would be the desire of the board.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Koch. Do we have any comments related to Commissioner Koch's comments? I don't see any. I think that's permissible, Commissioner Koch, so please go ahead and have at it.
Sure, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, that being said, is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Commissioner Smith, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Koch, any further discussion after that? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Moving on to the last action item today, which is 7E, the Barrier Island Implementation Plan adoption. This is Nathan Kautz, and Kittleson and Associates will present this item, please. Good morning, and you are recognized, gentlemen.
Good morning. As I said, Nathan Kautz from Kittleson. So the Barrier Island Congestion Study. We are on the backside of this, working on wrapping up the recommendations, getting the report, the draft submitted. So we want to reiterate what this was. This is looking at short-term operations focus, implementable improvements, not, for the most part, not major construction. There's a few things that are a little bit larger, but looking at something, 3 to 5 year time span, sometimes even sooner. As for the long term, if you remember the original Barrier Island traffic study, the MPO has made a lot of progress working through that, especially partnering with FDOT. The Complete Streets PD&E up and down the island is something that was kind of generated out of that study. You can see the bridge projects are being done. I received word from Dave the other day. It sounds like there's some 4-laning going on, I believe, on Cortez, potentially.
We've been asked to include in our long-range transportation plan, cost feasible plan, the 4-laning of the Cortez Bridge from Gulf Drive 789 out to 123rd Street. And then the state is also looking at some other projects that would enable capacity improvements on the road on the mainland into the populated area. So that's good news. That is, that's for the moment, it is a modeling effort that just plugs that in and gets it on the list. It may or may not involve any additional pavement widening. It may take the place of a, reversible lane or having space there. It would not delete any bicycle or pedestrian facilities, but it might take the place of a transit lane. Again, you've got the pavement to where if you needed it for that purpose, it could be repurposed. I believe that's an accurate interpretation of what we've been asked to do. Okay. And again, it's a matter of modeling and our LRTP, which is a longer plan document, but that construction is going to be taking place here quite soon. And we do know that that bridge replacement is going to make big differences in the congestion at that part of the barrier island onto the mainland and back and forth.
Great, thank you, Dave.
So there's a lot of big things coming up. The Gulfstream Roundabout, the expansion of transit options across the Ringling Bridge, and as you heard today about the water taxi, a lot of those things that were coming out of the original study that the MPO and the local area has made massive strides on. So this is kind of revisiting, looking for the smaller, shorter term, let's get it done type improvements. You'll be able to see, right now that QR code is to a site that we are hosting. We are working with MPO staff to get it hosted on the MPO's website. It'll be updated when that happens. But right now the congestion screening is posted. You can sort through the recommendations as well as the congestion hotspots. As part of this effort, 4 toolkits were developed. You remember we talked in the past, we did a literature review. So a lot of these toolkits are coming from the literature review, not from our study. Our study part where we do the analysis is the operations and roadway portion, transit mobility, policy, and resiliency. We're looking at local case studies and what I would call sister islands or sister communities where there's islands around the country that have adopted policies that they have found successful. The idea behind these toolkits is to offer ideas and to spark discussion on things that can be done in the future when looking at any of these categories. So transit mobility, looking at microtransit, free transit. I put an asterisk there. The study looked at free transit. Generally with transit, a lot of times what they find is ridership isn't significantly increased by decreasing fares. It's more the increase in, or the decrease in headways and the reliability of the system. So going from say an hour to 15 minutes or making sure that you know that you can count on it showing up. It's a lot less effective to reduce fares than to increase the service. But that was what was in the study, so that's what we have there. Mobility hubs, active transportation, and water travel. With policy, looking at vehicle restrictions, parking policies. In the original, I will point out in the original Barrier Island traffic study, a lot of the traffic on the island was generated by bouncing back and forth between parking lots or looking for parking. Evaluating transit-oriented development, storm surge and sea level protections, transit benefits, continue to study long-term, expanding multimodality and implement multimodal development. Resiliency, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but just looking at ways that you can protect yourselves in the future for either storm surge incursion or making sure that when it does incurge that it's not creating long-term problems and it's easier to recover from. And then operations and roadway, I'll get into these more in depth in just a minute. So 64 and East Bay, these recommendations ended up being, they're together, but we ended up combining them because they work together. So the two big locations, if you remember from the previous presentation that we found, was looking at the East Bay and 64, as well as 64 and Gulf Drive. So looking here, doing some pavement expansion, minor widening, and then lane reassignment at the intersection of 64 and Gulf Drive. This is something that could go pushed into scoping and work towards getting prioritized for an actual project. St. Armand Circle area. This was actually recommended as well in the past. It was studied by USF. Essentially what you're looking at is what we would call a quadrant roadway. So putting the two big dots, putting new intersection controls there and routing traffic, and then the orange marks are new raised crossings with PHBs so that you're working on either signalizing the pedestrians or signalizing the cars, and it's not a continuous stream. You're taking turns to the whole thing to try to keep everyone moving throughout the area. Cortez Road and 789. This is a little more complicated, and this would need a little additional study. It's not that it wouldn't be effective. The question is, how large of a turn lane do you put in? With a lot of the property owners there and additional side street and driveway access, it is, while it operationally will work well, there's also concerns of how much impact there are to the individual property owners and the people that are living in that area. So that's when we say extra study, it's not the operational part, it's talking about where there's trade-offs between the operations and the impact to the community. I also threw this in there. This was the old, is now outdated with Dave's information potentially, but this is the official proposed rendering of what Cortez will look like when the bridge job comes through. Revisiting East Bay and Gulf Drive. One of the intersections that came up as having problems was the Marina Drive, but a lot of that we identified was coming from the backups of people trying to get out and turn, either go through or turn left, Gulf and 64 here. So one of the things that was looked at was alternative routes, sending people potentially as a two-way pair, but it's looking at alternative routes to be able to get more people through. Some people already are using this as cut-throughs, but it's usually the people that drive it regularly. This is be looking at making it more of an official route. This would only be with recommended more study. Once again, that study isn't necessarily from the operations output, because operationally it will work. It's more of, does the community want traffic driving through their neighborhoods? Do they want that? It will improve. There are obvious trade-offs. You get traffic in your front yard, but at the same time, you're also being able to get on and off the island more easily. 41 and Bee Ridge, looking at signalization improvements, changing a little bit of the signal timing and some access management. Midnight Pass and Beach Road, installation of a roundabout. Midnight Pass and Stickney Point, recommending a new traffic signal and integrating both of the traffic signals, coordinating them with each other, as well as some access management. We took these recommendations to a public outreach event, as well as posting a survey. So with the survey, we got some very interesting results. So what I did here is it was one question. It was asking people to rank their choice. So essentially, you have 8 options, 1 to 8. Rank what you feel is the most important to least important, with 1 being the most, 8 being the least. So what I've done is I've showed here the percentages of people that have chosen that number as their selection, and then did a weighted score. The weighted score is really just taking the percentage multiplied times the number and then adding it together, and they're ranked that way. 64 improvements, both came back relatively high. They're not as crisp, but they are definitively weighted to the top end of people's preference. And then as you see the Gulf Drive down to Midnight Pass, those bottom 4 are very clear in preference. The 2 that I would say are, we'll call them, I don't know if controversial is the right, but very wide range of opinions, are the Cortez 789 and Santa Irma Circle bypass. It was either very, very popular or all the way at the bottom of people's preference. So there was some interesting outcome from that, but I am relatively pleased with, aside from those 2, there's a very clear preference and order of priority that people selected. Any questions? I know I had 5 minutes. I was trying to get it through a little bit faster. I don't know if I succeeded, but any questions on that?
Well, thank you, Nathan. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Smith, please.
Yeah, the roundabout at Midnight Pass and Beach Road.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I happen to live out there and member of the Chamber of Commerce and all, and I know Sarasota County, as a board, we voted to nix this and keep it a regular intersection. So I'm curious as to why are we still talking about it?
Was not aware of that decision. We were asked to look at it from an operational standpoint, and it does perform better. But I'm not aware of the decision.
Well, it performs differently. During season, it wouldn't perform well at all. Just those of us that have experienced it. A traditional intersection, enhanced intersection, I think, is what our transportation on the county side. But anyway, I would appreciate perhaps if this was eliminated, because we actually, the county commission took the money that we were putting on this. I think we put it towards River Road. So anyway, I would respectfully ask that this project be removed from our plan. Thank you.
Very good. Do we have any other comments from this board, Commissioner? Please.
I had just one little comment because I'm so about branding. I did note this morning, I'm not sure if you were here when Mr. Falcione was here, but he said he was specifically trying to eliminate it being called a water taxi and calling it a water ferry, and branding is so important. If we could maybe make sure that we coordinate that.
Very good, thank you. Yes? Yes, Commissioner.
Yes, sir, Chair, thank you very much. The survey information, thank you. I'm sorry, survey information, what's the sample set on that?
It was a few hundred people.
200 people. And so what will the output be used for? Is that going to use to be set priorities on funding or schedule, or is it driving your recommendations? I would think.
That would be a question for so it doesn't drive the recommendations from what works. What it would drive, I would imagine, is the prioritization. That'd be something I think Ryan could talk about.
Sure, and, you know, it's not one solution there, right? It is a few hundred people, right? And it's one that, I think Nathan's point is that we found things that were definitively, people were either definitively for or definitively opposed to. The ones I think we'd have to do some more research is where there's a split opinion. I think that was what we really learned from some of these outcomes. But yes, in the grander scheme, it would then be applied into our larger prioritization process, which then they would be scored further. So there is multiple layers of refinement through this process, and it wouldn't be the only way a project got funded. But it wouldn't, to Nathan's point, determine whether or not it would be effective operationally. It'd just be if it's a preferred project or a preferred investment.
Okay. As far as the sample set, do you have information on how many people from Longboat Key were actually surveyed?
I'm certain we can, we don't do that down to the zip code, but
Yeah.
it's one that, you know, if that's something that we were, I mean, I think it probably would have showed up. I think I would say, I got more responses to this from Longboat Key than any other jurisdiction. But that would have to be refined further too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any further questions for Nathan? Commissioner Koch, please.
Yes, on the St. Armand Circle a suggestion there, it says proposed new route, proposed new intersection. Could you just go over that, what you mean by proposed new intersection?
So the intersection itself exists as, say, unsignalized. What it would be doing is making more of a controlled intersection.
More of a what?
Controlled intersection.
Okay.
So whether that's roundabouts, whether that's traffic signals, whatever it is, it's making it to where it is less of a, I found a gap and I'm able to pull out, and more of an official path. The idea behind it is it allows a bypass of the pedestrian-heavy area.
Okay, so the proposal is to route traffic along those blue lines as opposed to through the circle itself?
Well, actually, I think the proposal coming out of this study is to let the city and the state determine whether or not it moves forward, because we wouldn't recommend that the MPO do more analysis on it. Is that correct?
That was one of the ones. So there's a few. This one, the turn lane in Cortez, the alternative routes around East Bay, those are all ones that in my opinion, in my experience, say working at FDOT, would require significant public outreach and working with the communities to see if it's a viable alternative from that standpoint. So those are, like, the question we were answering is what's viable from a traffic standpoint. The community aspect is going to be a different question to answer. And some of these, like the signal timing adjustments, the access management, those are smaller projects that are done every day that could probably be pushed to scoping and project prioritization without additional discussion, other than yes, we want this or no, we don't. But there are admittedly a few that, like St. Armand's, that would require significant additional discussion with the community to see what that actually shakes out to be.
Okay, thank you.
If I could follow up.
Oh, yes, sir, please, you're recognized.
Commissioner Koch, I actually go through that area 4 or 5 times a week, maybe more. And that route is something that many people use now. It goes down next to the new parking garage and you circumvent the circle. That is going to have significant input, I would think, from folks who live in those neighborhoods over there. And it is a solution, and it helps sometimes, but there are other issues that need to be dealt with, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're not thinking of any speed cameras or anything over there, are you, Ed? All right, we already know about those. We have a strong opinion on speed cameras in our community. Okay. All right, thank you. I don't believe we have any further questions at this time. I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the Barrier Island Implementation Plan with the caveat, I'm guessing, that Commissioner Smith's item was to be pulled and removed. Is there a motion, please? Thank you kindly. We have a motion by the mayor. Second by Commissioner Smith. And Betty got it. Okay, any discussion on this? Seeing none, let's call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, passes unanimously. Thank you kindly. Yes, Dave?
Thank you. I think one of the things that this study validated is that there aren't any really easy, simple solutions that make a big impact on any of these barrier islands, and that over time, the capacity improvements on the bridges will make probably some of the biggest differences. Over the years, we've added turn lane extensions wherever it was possible, with either acquisition of right-of-way or without adding right-of-way. The northbound at 789 comes to mind, getting off of the bridge. So no simple answers, and we'll keep working on implementing the projects that have support and seem to be viable. This narrows down what some of the most viable ones that we can look for working with DOT and local jurisdictions on in the next few years. And certainly the one roundabout might be something that the county wished to pursue some other intersection improvements at that location. So we would see what your jurisdictions want to do and work with you.
Very good, Dave. Next, we will move on to agenda item 8, presentation section. In this section, we'll start with MPO presentation 8AI, 2025 interim safety report. Nick Chiavani, did I say that correctly, sir? Chiavini, very good. Okay, my apologies. From the MPO will present this item, sir. You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. So, good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting our 2025 interim safety report, highlighting our current safety performance measure trends and key takeaways for the year so far. So as an MPO, we're required to track the number and rate of fatalities, the number and rate of serious injuries, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries in the region. So these performance measures are based off 5-year rolling averages, and the rates are calculated per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So just a reminder, this is, we set these goals annually. The latest goals were set in January of this year. And this board once again affirmed the safety targets of 0, aligning with the state DOT goals, and affirmed that no death or serious injury on our roadways is acceptable. So as I mentioned, we use 5-year rolling averages, and even with this method, outlier years can still impact results. And what's kind of exciting about this year is we're dropping 2020 out of the 5-year rolling averages. It's hard to believe it's been 5 years already. And what that means for the data is 2020 was an outlier in terms of safety data because there was lower vehicle miles traveled, lower number of crashes, but a higher number of fatalities and serious injuries. So some of the decreases we're seeing are, I believe, a result of that, as well as continued safety investments in the region. So compared to 2 cycles ago in 2019 to 2023, we're forecasting about a 5% decrease in fatalities, a 14% decrease in the fatality rates, and continuing to see serious injuries and the serious injury rate decline. And similar to previous updates, the non-motorized road users are seeing some improvement, but kind of lagging behind the broader trends. And this shouldn't be surprising with a region that is definitely not stagnant in population, with more people, there's more vehicle miles traveled, more annual crashes. So since 2018, the vehicle miles traveled has increased about 15%, and the average total number of crashes has increased about 10%. So just on its face there, there's more driving, but slightly less crashes, which suggests some rate-based improvement. And we're looking at the total number of fatalities, and again, keeping in mind the population growth that we've seen, where compared to 2018, it's about a 5% increase, actually. But if you look closer, you can see compared to a few cycles ago, we're forecasting about 118.8 fatalities, whereas, several years ago, we were at 125. And just want to take a moment, and it's easy to get number fatigue, but it's important to recognize that these are lives cut short, and the number of serious injuries are, by definition, life-altering injuries. So, seeing the serious injuries decrease 42% is definitely a huge win for the region and a result of continued safety investments, and that's a trend that we are forecasting will continue. So when looking at the fatality rate, which again is per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, we can see that it's actually minus 7% for fatalities, and serious injuries similarly is about cut in half, which is very heartening to see. And then the total number of non-motorized fatal and serious injuries, again, is a little more stubborn, but has decreased about 5%. So some key takeaways of looking at these rolling averages are that serious injury rate reductions are definitely a huge win for the region. Fatality rates, require more work for sure, and that's reflected in, the LRTP, which we're going to talk about, and especially as it relates to non-motorized road users, definitely focusing on increasing safety there. And then I included these as a result of, discussions both with this board and with committees that when we're talking hundreds of millions of vehicle miles traveled, it can be a little abstract for people. So I just included these in the slide deck where it's per capita, and it's very much pretty similar story, but maybe easier for some people to understand. And then for this, let's dive into 2025 year-to-date so far. So the crash data that we get has at minimum a 2-month lag. So what we're looking at here are total crashes processed by June 10th. There's surely crashes that have occurred before then, but just haven't been processed. But that doesn't mean we can't, glean trends and stuff from this data. So there have been about a little over 10,000 crashes, 42 fatalities, 358 serious injuries. And breaking out for non-motorized road users, that's 15 fatalities, 68 serious injuries, and that comes out to about 138 total non-motorized deaths and serious injuries. So as you can kind of see there, it's a bit of an outsized proportion. Next, I looked at some of the most common serious and fatal crash types, and pedestrian, again, is both common and increasingly fatal, as well as, won't go through all of these, but it's interesting to see sort of the commonalities behind the fatality versus serious injury rates. And what we're seeing is like intersection related, head-on, and higher speed crashes are increasingly fatal. So on the one extreme end of that, there have been 72 serious injuries for rear end crashes, but only 1 fatality as compared to 11 fatalities out of 45 serious injuries in off-road crashes, which are typically higher speed. And when looking through the data, one key takeaway that jumped out at me was how common the, if you look at the proportion of driving and traveling that takes place at day versus at night, it's very kind of adds to this outsized representation of nighttime crashes, where you can see 87% of all bike ped fatalities this year have occurred at night. And what's interesting is there really isn't a clear, if it's lighted, it doesn't seem to make as much of a difference, which is interesting and might suggest that maybe lighting isn't the only issue. It could also be, higher speeds due to less traffic on the road. And you can see there's quite a lot of crashes that do, bike ped crashes that do occur during the daytime, but they're much less likely to be fatal. And so in summary, we have about 35% of all fatalities have been bicyclists and pedestrians. And breaking that out, it's largely pedestrians with 13, bicyclists with 2 fatalities, and total KSI in the region is 358 serious injuries and 42 fatalities. And we use this data to prioritize projects and focus on safety in our LRTP. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you kindly. Yes, Commissioner Budin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question would be, in specific areas within the region, where's the concentration that we're seeing these fatalities and crashes happening?
Yeah, so we have the high injury network, which I forget the exact breakdown, but it's several, I think it's like 10 key roadways that are responsible for about an outsized proportion of crashes. And what we're seeing there is, I think US 41, Cortez, really, I think the largest, if you're looking at total, if I had to choose one cluster, it's probably around like Cortez and 41 and kind of that area. And, in our prioritization process, we've identified those areas and scored safety projects that are in those areas more favorably because they're dealing with, life-altering injuries and deaths. So we have the high injury network on our website if you would like to take a look, and it's.
Yeah, no worries. What's the threshold for you to make that determination?
It's based within the region, so it's kind of a percentile comparison based off different roadways. I don't know if there's like a number cut off. I think it's just compared to other roadways.
And so with the expectation in regards to maybe fixing a specific road or what would be the, I guess, the projection on the amount of crashes that might decrease based on the improvements?
Yeah, so that's something that kind of leads into a study that's not final yet, but we have a safety countermeasures performance monitoring study where we talked to a lot of our TAC members and, local partners, and they submitted safety projects that they've completed within the last, I believe, 10 years. And through that, we're kind of looking at, like, for example, roundabouts in different areas, and then it tracks the, fatal crashes before and after implementation, as well as mobility metrics and the type of crashes. So I guess short answer to that question is stay tuned. We'll have some like regional specific things, and that'll better inform, investment decisions and all that.
And so when it comes to the allocation of funding, how do we make the determination whether this road gets it opposed to another intersection or road?
There's a lot of factors that go into that, Ryan. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So, safety funds.
I guess what gets the priority?
So it varies first by road type, right? So you've got local and state facilities. We work closely with the state on their facilities. We're not so fortunate to end up with 10 of the top segments in the entire district are in Manatee County. That's something that we're trying to address directly and specifically. The state's doing a great job of helping us invest in those roadways. We also, through our LRTP process, have increased our proportion of program funds into safety projects, specifically at intersections and along these major roadways. So there are a number of factors that go into it, as Nick was saying, into deciding where these funds go, but it is a balanced process looking at both state and local facilities, and then how it also prioritizes in our overall scoring process. So the goal is to be directed and efficient with limited resources. Safety historically has not received the same kind of investment as capacity has. So these are things that we're trying to accomplish, both at the same time when we're doing capacity improvements. Are we also addressing safety? That's where I think we'll see the greatest advantage.
So based on my understanding, Manatee County has probably more fatalities than anywhere else in the region.
Correct.
So because of that, how much of the funding is being allocated in the specific? Is it 20%, 30%?
27 of the 30 in our long-range transportation plan for safety improvements are in Manatee County.
Okay.
Specifically due to that data. For some reason, whatever the case might be, we're still addressing if it's behavior, roadway design, activity at those locations. Manatee County has a disproportional number of fatalities and serious injuries in a relatively small region, as Nick was stating, Cortez 41 down to the airport, disproportionately high. It seems like when we get to the county line, that drastically changes. So safety money, it's a smaller portion of what's being funded, but we are directing those resources directly at the locations that are suffering the worst.
Okay. Would you say that based on the fatalities, it's because we have a lot more cars on the road in those specific areas?
I think it's multiple factors. You also, it's kind of it's a congregation of a lot of bad elements. When you look at a lot of commercial activity, say in Cortez, for example, lots and lots of commercial activity. You also have a lot of non-drivers. You have a lot of people walking and biking, and then you have a convergence of regional and local traffic. So you have a lot of people making trips south, say over to the DeSoto Bridge or the Green Bridge, heading south down 41. There's a lot of convergence of different factors that are causing that. And same thing, I think the state's done a great job of investing in attempting to understand. As Nick said, we'll have some better data specifically to say, if you put in an improvement in 2016, what did, like say per roundabout or per, per PHB, what was the annual decrease that we saw? We can see what measures were the most effective.
And we're going to see an increase in development within that area there. So did we do an analysis in regards to how many cars are going to be dumped? How many more cars are going to be dumped on that
absolutely.
road?
So our 2050 long-range plan, the basis of that was collecting something we called socioeconomic data and creating an existing plus committed network. So we took that into account when looking at that development, thinking specifically up on 75th. We took that specifically into account when you're looking at what kind of mobility improvements you can make, but also what kind of safety improvements you can make. Is the goal to create a safer environment, or is the goal to move more traffic? Those typically are in conflict with one another.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions over here on the right? Seeing none, the only quick question I had, do you guys ever take weather into consideration, slippery roads?
Yes, it's in reporting. It's in there. I don't know if we have any specifics at this point, but certainly they do. All the reports do come with time of day, condition, cloudiness, fog. Those are included. Of course, I will add, it does remain consistent with every factor, that it is dependent on the accuracy of those putting and submitting the reports. That's something that we're still continuing to work on. I'm glad we have kind of phased out of highway motor vehicles using paper reports. We are getting more electronic documentation, which seems to be a little bit more efficient and effective.
Just a quick comment on retrofitting that was brought up earlier. One of our, I would say, a problem project that started off as a state project, and then there were utility issues, was US 41 south of Cortez. And that project went from, I don't know, a $10 million adding some sidewalks and lighting project to a 30 some odd million dollar project.
34.
And it was kind of handed over to Manatee County, but the utility aspects, and who would absorb cost overruns, I don't know if it's been resolved yet, actually. So it got delayed. And that's an example of retrofitting and why it's really difficult sometimes to fix these things. I know that when you go in and you put in median barriers down the middle of a long stretch of US 41 or any other major road, a lot of times the businesses are not happy about that. And people who have to make U-turns aren't happy. So those are challenges that do have to be addressed as you try to find the right countermeasure or implementation of a safety project. On Washington Boulevard down in the city of Sarasota, they have done that, and they modified it to accommodate pedestrian and wheelchair traffic in a very busy area north of Fruitville Road. And now heading south of Fruitville Road doing kind of the same thing. So these are challenging areas when you're dealing with lots of, no right-of-way, no additional right-of-way, lots of pieces of property and lots of traffic. But we keep working on it, making progress.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Any further comments? Okay, thank you, gentlemen, very much. Next, we will move on to 8AII2, Yorkshire Rain Tree Interchange Coordination. This will be with Nina Venter. She will be presenting this morning. Just for the record, too, we're running a little behind, so let's keep it moving, please. Thank you.
Quick. Thank you. Good morning. So we're here today just to give you a very brief update on the Yorkshire Rain Tree Interchange. This is something that is on the joint board agenda with Charlotte County, Punta Gorda, MPO every year. So this will be open for discussion again in January. But given development of the 2050 LRTP, there was some coordination with Charlotte County, looking at our population projections and looking at future improvements. And so there's been a development with Yorkshire Rain Tree. Wanted to give you an update just so that there's no surprises in January. Charlotte County, Punta Gorda MPO and this MPO are on very similar timelines with the LRTP adoptions. As part of the SE data projection, we look at roadways and capacity needs over the next 25 years. What Charlotte County, Punta Gorda found was that the Kings Highway interchange was in need of more imminent improvements than what the proposed Yorkshire Raintree interchange would allow and accommodate. So what we did was both Charlotte County and Sarasota Manatee have maintained the Yorkshire Raintree interchange in our LRTPs. This is a map of all of the interchange as well as the supporting projects that will be necessary to make that interchange work. For our LRTP, the supporting projects and the interchange are included in the unfunded needs plan. But keep in mind, the interchange is at the longer end of the long-range plan, so 20 years plus out. But it is necessary to maintain the planning coordination at this point. Charlotte County, Punta Gorda MPO also has the interchange in their long-range plan. However, they have set aside some funding in their cost feasible for an interchange evaluation study of Kings Highway. This should not necessarily impact Yorkshire Raintree interchange planning, but it is something that they needed to do to evaluate the needs of Kings Highway at this point. So this is just an update, just an FYI, and it's something that'll be on your agendas again in January. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Nina. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, thank you, ma'am. Moving on to the last item under the MPO presentations this morning, it's the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, LRTP. This is the progress update, and Mr. Ryan Brown from the MPO will present this. Good morning, Ryan.
Thank you, sir. I'll be quick. Had an opportunity to go and present this at the Manatee County Commission meeting, and I'll keep it brief and concise, but I would not understate the importance of the long-range plan and our long-range planning efforts to ensure that we're effectively prioritizing and funding projects out into the future. Where we are currently, we're heading towards adoption. As mentioned previously, we'll be looking for adoption in October 20th. We're still working closely with the department as well as your staffs as well to make sure we're tightening up all the loose ends we might have, specifically related to the project this morning, Clark and 64, as well as some other projects that we need to kind of refine to make sure they're effectively labeled in the cost feasible plan. The public comment period ran from October 5th to September 5th. We got a handful of comments that those will be addressed as well. And like I said, these will be coming back to our Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee on the 14th and back to the board on the 20th. Just a high-level overview. I'm not going to dive into this too deeply. We collected several local revenue sources. We are not in the business of telling local governments how to spend their money, but these are recommendations on things that could be beneficial in the transportation system. The main two down here I'd like to focus on where we really make a difference in terms of funding projects is Surface Transportation Block Grant, also known as our SU funds, as well as Transportation Alternative Funds, which funds trails, bike ped facilities, et cetera. I will make one note, carbon reduction funds were not amended into this plan. They were actually removed due to the state of how the state would like to address those funds from the federal government, not something that we're programming at this point. The main outcome of this whole story is this number over here is about a 50% decrease from our 2045 revenue projections. It's due to a number of factors, but also first time I think we've seen in quite some time that the local revenues far outpace what is anticipated on the state and federal side. I will say we did accommodate about 50% of these here to local revenue for debt service, operations, maintenance, and other infrastructures. We did a pretty in-depth dive into all of your CIPs and all of your revenue forecasts to what we think would be applied to transportation projects. Just some more outreach. We completed many surveys which helped feed and design this long-range plan. We did town tour meetings, something we like to do and go out and meet with your staffs individually and hear your concerns and hear what your priorities are. We also held several public workshops and outreach events throughout the last year and had a technical review on our CFP for the last month here in the summer. Developing our tables and how we got to the projects that are in the cost feasible plan. First and foremost, we are required to fund the pipeline projects. There's 23 projects. These are things that currently have a phase funded in the work program. Developing our funding programs, these were also formerly known as our box fund programs. We developed 5 based around our major types of improvements: multimodal, intersections, resiliency, safety, that's transportation systems and management operations, as well as capacity. Takes into account local, state, and funding commitments, as a large number of projects here within the funding program, just over 90. And last is the unfunded list, one that is required to be included. It's no funding source identified, and there are more than 80 projects in this list. So you can see the trend. We've got money for about 23 that we know directly. We will have potentially other funding to address 90, and no funding identified for more than 80 projects. The pipeline itself, you can see, is fully funded, as I just mentioned, about $416 million over the next 25 years. This is where the discrepancy begins to happen. We've got about 90 projects. We had about $180 million left over from state and federal sources to fund that program, with a total cost of that program at $876 million. While we, don't directly state how local funds can be spent, we did identify these projects as potential investments that would then potentially help efficiencies within the transportation system. And lastly, unfunded needs, there's no defined cost on that. That would be determined on other future funding mechanisms or other grants that could become available. As you can see, this is the balance of costs by program and the amount of revenue we had to allocate, and that is the discrepancy I just mentioned. We did our best this time to kind of split the program funding accordingly. As you can see, our largest investments, and to no surprise, are multimodal improvements and capacity improvements. Those just so happen to be the most expensive improvements. There's only 6 safety or capacity improvements in the program, and it costs $284 million. There's over 30 safety projects, and that runs you about 62. So you can see the differentials in costs based on project type. Here's the balance, just another format of how the funding is spent by program. And you can see where our discretionary funds are spent versus state funding sources. Moving forward, like I said, the main goal is to bring this forward to you all, to our committees in October, for your consideration. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Any questions for staff here this morning? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is agenda item 8B. This is under FDOT presentations. This is the Bradenton Palmetto Connector Project Development and Environmental PD&E Study. With us this morning, we'll have Jimmy Villis, if I said that correctly, and Michelle Rittenhauser with FDOT. Good morning. You are recognized.
Good morning. Thank you. Jimmy Vilse here for the record with the Florida Department of Transportation. I am the project development manager for the district, and we are happy to be here this morning to give you guys a brief update on the BPC project. We've been hard at work for the past few months to study traffic pattern, kind of understanding where traffic is coming from, where they're going, and also collecting traffic counts. Many of the residents in the community expressed their interest with DOT being out there and collect actual traffic volume as opposed to working off traffic modeling software. And so we've been doing that. And also, as part of today's presentation, you will get a report on the traffic volume of pass-through vehicles. We believe there's a study that was done a couple of years ago where the pass-through volume, meaning folks starting north of Palmetto and going south of downtown Bradenton, I think that number was around 30-something%. That number has since been increased with the latest data that we have. And also you'll hear the different either benefits or disadvantages that each corridor has. Unfortunately, no corridor seems to be rising to the top, where one corridor seems to lessen the right-of-way impacts, but the construction cost seems to be higher. So you'll get you'll hear something along those lines as part of today's presentation. But ultimately, as Mayor Brown said earlier, the DOT approach is community-centered, which is why we've been going to all those meetings. We've met with the City of Palmetto, City of Bradenton. We're here with you today, and I believe next week or in the next few weeks, we'll be with the Manatee County Board of Commission to kind of share with you what we've observed. And together, as a community, we can hopefully decide what's best with the community moving forward. And hopefully we can deliver this important project sooner rather than later. With that, I'd like to invite Michelle Woodersheiser to start with the presentation.
Thanks, Jimmy. Michelle Rudeshauser. Thank you all for having us today. We presented to you probably about a year ago, maybe 8 months ago. And so as Jimmy had mentioned, we will provide an update. This is just a brief introduction of who we all are. I'm the FDOT project manager for this project. We're going to give you all a brief overview of where we are currently, where we started with the ACE, and then most importantly, we wanted to provide an update on the traffic analysis because that has really informed a lot of our decision-making, and it will inform a lot of our decision-making moving forward. So we began on the left there with the alternative corridor evaluation. We had 10 corridors that we were looking at. We did a high level, what's called an ACE analysis, which is a feasibility study to determine the best location for a potential new bridge crossing across the Manatee River. The ACE study wrapped up with recommending 3 corridors to move forward to the PD&E phase, which is the phase we're in currently. That's Corridor A, that goes along the US 301-41 corridor, alternative Corridor B, and then Corridor D as in dog, which is in purple. So the ACE report was approved by FDOT Central Office, and then we immediately walked into traffic studies. As Jimmy had mentioned, we did both traffic modeling as well as collected real-time data. We looked at 20-plus potential improvement alternatives along Corridor A, B, and D, and then we did a comparison and analysis of those 20-plus corridors. Imran Ghani, who is our traffic lead, will give an overview of that analysis, and then Gail Woods, who is our PD&E PM, will give an overview of the corridors, some conceptual analysis that we looked at along Corridor A. And I think the main takeaway today is that we have looked at all 3 corridors from a traffic standpoint. As Jimmy had indicated, there's no one corridor that necessarily rises to the tops. There are pros and cons to each of the corridors, but FDOT is committed to addressing a capacity issue that we're having here, both locally and regionally, and we really will be focusing on trying to maximize existing corridors. Imran?
Good morning. My name is Imran Ghani. I'm a consultant to FDOT. The foundation of every PD&E begins with a strong understanding of the existing traffic patterns. So for traffic analysis, we did traffic counts, we did an origin-destination study, and we used this information to figure out the improvement scenarios and also to forecast for 2045. Very quickly, I'll mention that our data collection used the latest traffic data. This is a traffic count in US 301 conducted 4 months ago. In May 2025, you're seeing volumes by time of day. The main point is that if you look at DeSoto Bridge, in the morning rush hour, the peak direction is southbound. In the afternoon, the peak direction is northbound. And actually, this is true of all 3 bridges, that if you look at that in the morning, everybody's heading south, and in the afternoon, most of the people are heading north. Traffic ADT was 65,000. And the other thing that Jimmy just mentioned is in 2014, there was an origin and destination study that identified that 31% of the traffic was through traffic. Through traffic is trips which either start or end outside the study area. For our study, we actually met with the cities of Bradenton and Palmetto and helped them define what they call a local trip versus a through trip. And the second thing we did is we updated the data based on the latest origin and destination surveys. And what we found out is that number has now increased to 47%. I talked about an origin destination survey. Here are some of the results of that. We focused on two things. How does the traffic get to the bridge? And once it crosses the Manatee River, where does it go? So each number that you see is the traffic getting to the bridge. And as you can see, most of the traffic is coming from US 41 and US 301. Once you cross the Manatee River, the next question was, where is the traffic going? And as you can see, the bulk of the traffic is actually heading outside our study area, 45%, going north on either US 19 and US 41. I'm just going to switch directions and now also look at the southbound direction. Again, bulk of the traffic is coming from either US 19 or US 41. And then the predominant destination is US 41 business and then US 301. One of our needs for the project is obviously population growth. By 2045, the Manatee County population is projected to increase by over 200,000 people. So what our traffic analysis showed that there is more demand than capacity. So for all our alternatives, we focused on adding additional lanes to different alternatives. So for our alternative analysis, we focused on 3 locations: Corridor A, shown in yellow, Corridor B, shown in blue, and Corridor D, shown in purple. We started by looking at the no-build alternative, in which no improvements are proposed, no additional lanes are proposed. And we also looked at widening the DeSoto Bridge and the US 41 corridor to 6 lanes, which would add 2 more lanes. One thing I want to point out is if you look at Corridor A, which uses either US 301 or US 41, it is classified as an arterial road. One of the challenges with adding capacity or adding lanes to an arterial is all the signalized intersections reduce that capacity. So one of the things we did is we looked at innovative solutions around the state, and the picture that you see on our right is from Gandy Boulevard in Tampa. They ran into a very similar situation, and what they did was they had some improvements at ground, but they also have an elevated roadway that bypasses all the signalized intersections. So using that, we also tested an alternative at Corridor A, in which we had 6 lanes at US 41 and DeSoto Bridge, and a 2-lane elevated alternative, and then also a 4-lane elevated alternative. So those added either 4 and 6 lanes compared to no builds. Up to now, every improvement had focused on Corridor A, so we also looked at Corridor B and D. For those, we kept US 41 Corridor A at 4 lanes and tested a 6-lane corridor, 6-lane bridge, 6-lane new alignment at Corridor B and D, and those would add 6 more lanes compared to no build. Up to now, also, we've sort of focused on either improving Corridor A, B, and D. The last set of alternatives combine improvements. So here you see improvements at Corridor A, but also improvements at Corridor B and D. So having defined the alternatives, the next step was to forecast traffic and figure out which of these alternatives do really well in terms of traffic. We looked at a number of different metrics like the forecast at the bridge, the volume over capacity, but each of those metrics only measures how well that roadway is doing. You know, Nick made a presentation earlier where he talked about vehicles miles traveled. We used a similar metric called vehicle hours traveled that looks at the congestion not just for the roadway, but for the entire area. So based on those metrics, if you look at the 2045 projection, the volume over capacity, and the vehicle hours traveled, the 3 alternatives that rise to the top from a traffic point of view are Corridor A with 6 lanes at grade and 2 lanes elevated, and then Corridor A no build with Corridor D at 6 lanes, and then also an alternative that utilizes 4 lanes at Corridor D and 6 lanes at Corridor A. And with this, I will turn it over to Gail.
Thank you, President.
We're going to go real quickly through Corridor A, which is the existing US 301-41 corridor. The corridor begins at State Road 70, and it ends at the 4119 split. It's about 8.75 miles. So one of the things we did was look at constrained locations. And one of the constrained locations for a 6-lane corridor is by the Manatee Memorial Hospital and the Aria Apartments. What you see on the lower left is the typical section near the intersection, and this is 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction, with the green showing the shared use path and the red showing additional right-of-way that needs to be purchased. And again, these are all preliminary, subject to change. So we looked at the other 6-lane constrained area near 17th Street in Palmetto. We have Lincoln Memorial Middle School to the left and Lincoln Park to the right, and there will be right-of-way takes through this area. We also looked at an 8-lane section, and again, 4 lanes in each direction, and the alignment had to shift to the west to minimize the impacts to the hospital. We also looked at a 6-lane elevated section. So this is from State Road 64 to the DeSoto Bridge. The elevated section is in the median, and then you see the 3 lanes in each direction bowing out and coming in to all match at the DeSoto Bridge. And then with the elevated section through 17th Street, again, it's in the median with 3 lanes underneath in each direction. So here's another example of what an elevated section could look like. This is Selman West Extension with Gandy Boulevard underneath. And this is another example of what it would look like from ground level. So we did the same thing. We did a comparison matrix for the 6 lanes at grade that I showed earlier. They're low impacts, low right-of-way impacts, but it didn't move traffic as efficiently. And again, we're looking at the same 3 as Imran mentioned earlier. The 6 lanes at grade with 2 lanes elevated, Corridor A, no build with 6 lanes on Corridor D, and 6 lanes on Corridor A with 4 lanes on Corridor D. So all these impacts that was mentioned earlier, there's no silver bullet, there's no particular corridor that rises to the top. Either it moves a lot of traffic or it's very expensive with right-of-way or environmental impacts. Or with Corridor D, you're going through a community. So we're taking all these things into account as we move forward. We'll be looking at finalizing some of these design alternatives, looking at GIS analysis and really planning level cost estimates to see exactly what these costs are. But we will be focusing our improvements on Corridor A, which is the US 301-41 corridor. We have been in a series of having meetings, as was mentioned earlier. We've met with quite a few folks. We're here today. We are meeting with small groups as requested, and we are looking forward to having a workshop where we will present this information early in 2026 with a public hearing fall or winter of 2026.
Great, thank you kindly. Any questions for staff here? Okay, yes, Dave.
If the replacement in kind construction is delayed, will this PD&E occur soon enough to influence a potential redesign so that it could be constructed with the DeSoto replacement, bridge replacement?
So one of the things we're looking at is making sure that the DeSoto Bridge, however it's designed, can be easily widened to accommodate whatever we're going to do in the future. We're looking at the vertical clearance, so that however many lanes are needed, we can do, I think we're looking right now for 10 lanes.
That answers
maximum.
my, I guess, the basic question. And the, as my understanding is that the bridge replacement project may get deferred due to two factors: construction cost increases and available funds, and also the cost of continuing to maintain it compared to other projects has shifted slightly, so that it might make more sense from a balancing the budget standpoint to push that out, even though construction costs would potentially increase.
That's true. I mean, we're at a pivotal point of we've got to explore alternatives and definitely need you all sponsorship and support behind that preferred, and also the community aspect as well. But I think this is the perfect opportunity to look at all things and all opportunities.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments from this board? Okay, seeing none. Thank you kindly. Okay, moving into agenda item number 9, which are member comments. And for the good of the order, are there any member comments on the left side here? Commissioner Koch, I see you're recognized.
Yes, thank you very much. I have 2 comments, and I'll be as brief as possible. Both of them have to do with safety and roundabouts. One of them is that we have a request from a group of citizens in the city of Sarasota near Boulevard of the Arts on North Tamiami Trail. And it seems the intersection there between North Tamiami Trail and Boulevard of the Arts has become increasingly dangerous, that there's been an increase in accidents, and specifically at the pedestrian level. The pedestrians are feeling very endangered at that intersection. The pedestrian and bike traffic and car traffic has increased drastically in people wanting to access, happily, the Bay Park. And so that's sort of what's driving that, in addition to the increase in development and growth in the city of Sarasota. And the residents have put together a list of short-term and long-term suggestions to increase the safety of pedestrians, and I can share these with you. The ultimate goal being a roundabout, which was planned for that intersection, but due to right-of-way has been put, on the list of not possibilities, but potentially we could look into that again. So that is one suggestion here that I'm happy to share this with you. And then the other one is the same thing with roundabouts. I have been bringing this to the attention of this board, and it was mentioned earlier about safety in that stretch. It was referenced earlier in Manatee County, but also in Sarasota County, the stretch on US 41 from 14th Street north to Cortez was identified by MPO as the highest fatalities in that corridor. This was last year. I don't know if it still is, but it was drastically higher than anywhere else in the region. And there was a plan to have a roundabout at MLK and Myrtle. And because of right-of-way acquisition, that has been pushed out. And so I would continue to advocate and ask FDOT and this body to reconsider allotting funds for right-of-way acquisition so that we can consider implementing those 2 roundabouts at MLK and Myrtle, which ultimately, as we know, the series of roundabouts slows the traffic down when we have one at Gulfstream, Fruitville Road, 10th Street, 14th Street. If we continue up north, it helps to address that safety issue north and south from Sarasota to Bradenton.
Okay, great, Commissioner. Thank you. Any further comments? Mayor, you're here.
Yes, sir.
All right.
You're a little
Nanette,
late,
did you
sorry.
see him in there? Oh, my apologies. I didn't recognize you,
That's all
Mayor.
right, not a problem.
Everything well in your world?
It is great. It's good.
Okay, very good. All right, it's getting close to that lunchtime hour. I have no further comments. Just for the good of the order, our next meeting will be October 20th, 2025 at 9 a.m. at this very location, Doubletree Inn, 8009 15th Street East in Sarasota. Seeing no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.